Are we ready, clocks?
I've got to do the news!
How much time? 30? 30 seconds? I'm on right now. I don't believe you. What?
Solidari-Tea, you beautiful people. Welcome to the stream. This is the Brews at 10 on my left eye, and I'm your humble host, Lefty. Thanks for being with us this evening, or whenever you're watching back. Do hit thumbs up as you join us, please, people. Let's brew this thing. Well, we'll see just how much of this ram-packed show we can get through. We'll be kicking off with Zack Polanski's press conference, which happened earlier today. That will be a first-time watch for me, so do join me to watch that for the first time. From what I know, pretty much statement, then a Q&A kind of format, but a couple of very interesting guest speakers as well, from what I hear tell. Also, yeah, there's a massive Ferrari. Obviously the Conservative Party's vetting process might not really be up to standards. It seems that they were about to nominate a neo-Nazi as a council candidate, which they've now had to do a sort of stunning U-turn on, but not quite. More on that. We've got a lot about environment and the climate crisis this eve as well. Of course, the heat wave ongoing in a lot of parts of the UK. Not here in Manchester though. It's decided to have a day off. It's been somewhat precipitous. Periodically throughout most of the day, so yeah. From a rainy studio in Manchester. We do have quite a lot coming up. What else have I not mentioned? We'll be talking about things in the Middle East as well, of course. And we'll be having hot seats. It is just a week to go until the by-election. Well, a week and a few hours, couple of hours. Until August 13th. The date the nation's been waiting for. Been waiting for. That one was an accident, actually. Didn't even mean that one. But we do have plenty of puns coming up because you're in for a bit of a treat on the live stream. Some of you members, for example, the marvellous people you can see on your screen right now, may have noticed just a short while before we came on stream, we have issued part 2 of the Ultimate Binface Memes Gallery. So do enjoy that one as an early privilege, members. Before that goes public sometime tomorrow. So thank you very much for all of your support. There are lots of ways to help the channel out, of course. Super chats open if you're watching live, as well as super stickers. Well, I say live, it's technically before the stream ends. But if you are catching up later on, tomorrow or whenever, please do consider using super thanks. And if you're unable to use those options via YouTube, please check out the Buy Me a Coffee page in the description of any content on the channel. Just follow the link, it'll take you straight to the Buy Me a Coffee page. Thank you very much, everybody, and I really do hope that you enjoy the second edition of the Ultimate Binface Memes Gallery. And yes, I know, initially it was just going to be one video, but there've been so many since we put that out. I decided to start to collate a part 2. It might sound a bit odd there being 2 parts to the Ultimate, but we couldn't change the title of the last video to Penultimate and now change part 2 to the Ultimate one, because people might get confused, because it would have the title of the first video in doing that, even though it's a new release. So that explains that. And yes, there is a slight technical glitch in the video that we decided wasn't worth going back and editing. So don't bitch. Let's hope that we're not bitching come a week Friday when the announcements result. Let's hope that it's Nigel Farage who's a bitching and a crying. And without a job in. Well, without one of his jobs, that is. Without the air quotes main one in Parliament. Let's give a shout out to some of you in the chats. Can see quite a lot of familiar faces already. Adam Gordon, Davinia Robbins, Or Am I, Jacqueline, Doc Davies in the house. Nice to see you all. Solidari-Tea, everybody. And Emma Richardson as well. Very good evening to you all. I can see a few members already. Quite a lucky find there, Adam. The watch. Not bad. Will we see you on Antiques Roadshow perhaps, or in a Financial Times article about a record-breaking day at Sotheby's? Who knows? But that's very generous to offer to share the spoils as well And I did notice while doing some editing, I think it was on the live stream chapters on a recent live stream, you asked about the picture next to your name. There was a bit of confusion on the stream, I remember, but you did ask if you could have, I think, Binface specifically. Unfortunately, we can't customise them to each individual member. It's just based on how long you've been a member for. So you'll notice, for example, up in the chat, Davinia, Doc and Jacqueline have all been members for roughly the same amount of time, so they get the Kia Hardy, which does actually represent, I think, 1 year or more, 12 months or more. But we are going to be updating them, of course, as the channel gets older and there are more years of membership to pass. We will have to keep adding to them with historic socialist figures. But we'll be branching out from mostly UK politics, I think, as we go along. I don't know, goodness knows how long My Left Eye is going to last. We're here for the long term, we know that much. But let's say hypothetically we get to the 10-year mark, you'd be looking at something like a Karl Marx static emoji or something like that, Friedrich Engels. We're working on it. Bargain hunt at best for the watch. Well, an exciting find nonetheless. Looks like you're all doing okay in chat as well. Bit of a drop in temperature where Divinia is. In fact, Doc Davies is calling out for a drop or two of rain. Well, if you move to the northwest, even during some droughts, you won't be without. But it's been very welcome, actually. The clear air and, of course, the lower temperatures, quite refreshing. More on climate change to come. A lot of that will be intertwined with Polanski's speech. I won't give any spoilers away. I do know two of the guest speakers. One of which is a very well-known public figure. The other is actually a member of the public services who spells out a very sort of terrifying portrayal of how things look for public service infrastructure, the emergency services more specifically, and the lack of pre-planning, the lack of preparedness that we've seen from successive governments in tackling the climate change. I'm about to set myself off on a rant, so we'll come back to that later. I could feel it. I could feel it in my loins. I'll let Zack Polanski do most of the preaching in just a few moments.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Because it will actually be a comedy interlude as opposed to bookending the live stream as we normally do with comedy clips. That will serve in the function of the aforementioned Count Binface Ultimate Memes Gallery Part 2. It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And I just did it live in one go. Yes, air punch.
Socialists.
Oh my God.
David Dickinson fascinates you. That's the host of Bargain Hunt, isn't it? Can't really say. I go out of my way to watch Bargain Hunts. I obviously know what it is. David Dickinson as well. Yeah. If David Dickinson and Donald Trump had an orange off, That might be a fair contest, I think. Right then, now then. What have you got in your bloody attic? Oh, right, it's worth about, I don't know. Maybe, about 50p for that. Up next is Adam, he's got a watch. And don't bitch about ad-lib, improvised first-time impressions of daytime TV hosts. That's on the not bitch list as well. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention that we'll be going into, of course, some recent revelations, where accusations of insider trading concerning a certain person I just mentioned very recently. Yes, the pumpkin-spiced Palpatine himself, the US version, not the attic-dwelling, formerly incriminated daytime TV host. In fact, you don't even know which one I'm talking about when I say that, of course, was The Apprentice. That was, well, more evening, not daytime TV, but yeah, apparently David Dickinson was done for fraud once. Was it credit card fraud? Something along the lines of increasing his credit rating by misuse of credit cards or credit card applications. I can't remember what it was. Allegedly, supposedly, etc. Asterisk footnotes. And then there's Trump. But yeah, we know capitalism, of course. We know it very well, don't we, people? We know the kind of things that go on within the stock market. We've heard about insider trading in the past, but this is a whole new level that we're talking about here. If you've not heard about this one, it's the most brazenly open insider trading that you could ever see. It's perhaps more openly brazenly corrupt. In fact, it is. I'm going to say it is more openly brazenly corrupt than the recent FIFA scandal concerning the idea to create private shares for businesses to profit from the World Cup, of course, with the president currently facing a crisis of popularity over that particular move. Infantino. But I don't think it'll last very long. And hopefully, neither will Donald Trump. So we shall verily proceed. I think I've waffled enough in the opening parts of the stream. That's not the word out. Salvo, the opening salvo of the stream. Well, it's not really a game of chess, but we're getting on with it nonetheless.
On with it. Yes, get on with it.
Get on with it!
I'll try and talk over the conference, going to the Zack Polanski press conference from earlier today first. And try not to pause too much just for the sake of brevity, because we do have a lot to go through, and I've not seen this. So you're going to watch the whole thing with me? You bloody lucky people. Right, let's see what's happening.
Yesterday, I was in Oxfordshire, standing in the aftermath of the devastation caused by a wildfire. Trees reduced to charcoal. Cars turned to burnt-out wrecks. The smell of smoke still lingering in the air, on the site of what was once a thriving local business, now reduced to ash. Wildfires, literal scorched earth, and a looming sense, and I really want everyone to hear this. This is only just the beginning. And today, as temperatures fall at the end of yet another extreme heat alert, we know that if it rains now, the soil being baked dry means it's much more likely to flood. These days feel exceptional, but what we are living through right now are likely some of the least extreme summer temperatures we'll experience in our lifetimes.
Yeah, we say it quite a lot. I'll pause very briefly here just to remind you that this is as good as it gets, what we're experiencing in the now, in the present.
Today, I am sounding the alarm, and I'm laying out a plan. Because last week, while a wildfire the size of 200 football pitches was raging across Suffolk, I called on Prime Minister Burnham to act urgently to address the crisis. I suggested a Cobra meeting, being the very least he could do. And 6 days later, with another heat alert just having ended,
he's pissing about with bombs on his social media is what he's doing.
From the very top of government.
That's bread.
No emergency briefings, no new plan, and precious little detail about how this government will protect people from the crisis. It is putting lives and livelihoods at risk across the entire UK. So today, I'm delivering a reality check. We are facing the biggest threat to this country since the Second World War. I'm setting out what Prime Minister Burnham can do now to tackle the crisis, and I am challenging him to act with the urgency we need. Yes! You will hear today from those on the front line of this crisis, and they will lay out what they have dealt with in the past few weeks. And to them, on behalf of the entire country, I want to say thank you. Extreme weather is now the new normal, and without action, the impact on the people of this country will be unimaginably grave. The threats we face are threefold. First, the threat to the safety of the population. Almost 3,000 people have died from the effects of extreme heat this summer.
That's in the last few weeks. That's in weeks. That's like 100 a day. You know, if you count July, the driest July that we've had in history. If 100 people a day were dying of some mysterious new disease, you'd certainly be hearing about it in the mainstream media. But no, this is human-caused climate change that we're talking about. And it goes beyond that. It goes way beyond that, but I'll let Zack continue. It's, again, at risk of me going off on a rant. For anyone who's not a regular viewer, I am, of course, a political and environmental activist myself. Climate change is my number one concern at the moment. And in fact, it absolutely terrifies me.
And we know that older people and those with pre-existing conditions are particularly at risk from these dangerous temperatures. Those are the people who have been forced to stay at home for days on end, windows, curtains closed, trying to wait out the extreme heat. And these are the people who are most likely now to have grieving families, whose bodies were under such intense strain in trying just to stay cool that their kidneys and their hearts could no longer cope.
3,000 people. 3,000 people. It gets to the point where the normal self-cooling, self-cooling system of the human body breaks down, i.e. you sweat, the evaporation of that sweat creates the air which cools you down. With the evaporation, that's how it works. But it stops working at a certain point, and then it gets to the point where sweating actually starts to snowball the negative effects, and it's actually the sweating itself that starts to kill you.
Meanwhile, wildfires have seen hundreds evacuated from their homes, while many thousands more wait anxiously with flames on the horizon and smoke in their lungs. We've seen across Europe how bad things can get. Hundreds of thousands evacuated, 500,000 acres burned. The sheer scale of the devastation is hard to comprehend.
Vasodilation.
But we need to look it in the face, because this is only a taster of what's to come if we don't act now. Second, we face a threat to our food and water security. Farmers are now warning we could see food shortages after flooding, followed by drought, has decimated crops. And despite farmers working really hard through the nights to avoid the heat, food production is grinding to a halt, and our food prices are set to rise.
Because the soil's
Half of
getting
England
worse.
is experiencing serious drought, and across the country, 8 of our water reservoirs are at risk of running dry.
8 full reservoirs.
Privatised
8 full reservoirs in a temperate zone in bloody Great Britain, where we spent God knows how long moaning about the rain being correctly sort of stereotyped as a rainy nation. Yes, above average rainfall, usually, but these aren't usual times. And for 8 reservoirs to dry up in such an area should be an alarm bell for anyone. The pathetic excuses of the deniers are getting even worse now. Some of them are still just resigned to thinking that with climate change, basically Britain will turn into where they go on their holidays in Europe, in mainland Europe, places like Spain, Portugal, other European countries and islands, that will have that here. That's the level of delusion that we're talking about.
water companies. They've failed to build a single new reservoir since 1992, are losing nearly 3 billion litres of water a day from leaky pipes. That's 5 times more than a nationwide hosepipe ban would even save. The threat is so severe that the UK's National Risk Register warns that if we have 3 years of exceptionally dry weather like this, we could face water rationing. These aren't distant possibilities. They're very real scenarios, and they are coming straight at us down the track. Because finally, we face a threat to our very way of life. Parents unable to take their children to the playground because the slides are so hot it could burn their skin off. Temperatures so high they keep us inside for days for the sake of our health. Cities feeling like ghost towns, parks turned into deserts. We only have to look across the Channel to France and Spain to see what faces us in the years ahead. Europe is heating.
And he's not talking about the migrant surges in Spanish territory, not actual Spain itself, obviously, Africa. He's talking about the climate. And it's canary in the coal mine. It really is. I've been saying it for a long time. Because that is the trend, that is the pattern that will follow, of course. That's just one of the natures of geography. With us being further north, it will affect us slightly later, with France and Spain being closer to the equator. Of course, the more extreme summers will come to them first, but it will come to us all eventually. And don't think just because I use the word eventually that means it's centuries away, a very long time away. We're talking about within our lifetimes, and the effects of it, need I remind you, could lead to complete societal collapse by 2040.
At twice the rate of the rest of the world. Wildfires, droughts, deadly floods. The scenes we have seen play out on our TV screens are frankly apocalyptic. And yet the response from our government is to pretend none of this is happening. It is an astonishing dereliction of duty from those whose very first responsibility is to keep all of us safe. And from the media, with some brilliant and notable exceptions, we have seen more clamouring for North Sea drilling in the last few weeks than actually raising the alarm on climate breakdown. While our country has come together, people have offered shelter to those who have had to leave their homes due to wildfires. They've checked in with older neighbours to care for those who are sick because of the heat. But the government have been far, far too quiet on what is an emergency. So today you will hear from some of those on the front line of this crisis and those with vital insights into how we face this threat. A doctor, a firefighter, someone who served this country in the armed forces, and someone who has dedicated his entire career to our precious nature and wildlife.
No spoilers.
It's experts like these that this government should be bringing to the table to design a full-scale emergency response. So I want to step out from this big picture and look at some of the urgent steps that Prime Minister Burnham needs to urgently announce.
Yeah, because Burnham's definitely dragging his... I'm just going to change the freeze frame. It's done it again. I keep catching him. Stop blinking, Zack. There we go. The non-blinky Zack. God, what I was going to say there. Andy Burnham's definitely been lacking. Polanski has got some really good solutions. Yeah, sorry about the source on this one. We're not actually watching it straight through them. It was just that their video was the only one that had it in its entirety without a load of other faff and nonsense at the beginning, which would have required a bit more editing. But if you just don't like to see the name of it, I can... and all of a sudden... Oh, what's this? Anonymous broadcast.
People right now and keep us safe from what we know is coming down the track. In the immediate term, we need to keep people safe from extreme temperatures. That means a free, accessible, cool space.
Spoilers about who the other guest speakers are going to be is what I was referring to there. Davinia, yeah. I do know a couple of them, but I'm not telling you. Well, they're all very good. One of them's very well known. I've met him. Oh, it's a he. I've given the pronoun anyway, or preferred pronoun.
In every local area. And financial support for households so they can heat-proof their homes. Second, we need a robust wildfire prevention strategy. A fire service with the resources it needs to tackle blazes when they come. And that must include firefighting helicopters when needed. And not again ever seeing the shocking sight of requiring a charity to step in to contract a private firm.
Why are you all talking about condiments in the chat?
And this should all be funded by taxing the fossil fuel giants who are profiting from fueling these infernos. And finally, to secure our water supply, prevent droughts, and protect our food system, we need to bring water back into public hands.
Absolutely.
Right now, money is flowing out of our hands into the pockets of shareholders.
There's only one party that
Just
will
like
do it.
water is flowing out of those companies' leaky pipes in the middle of a drought.
Well, I know that your party would do it as well, but currently polling on 0.5%, unfortunately.
Every single penny households pay for their water needs to go back into strengthening our infrastructure, building new reservoirs, and protecting us from the droughts of the future. We know that these extreme temperatures, these deadly wildfires, are being driven by the burning of fossil fuels.
Damn
the
right!
sad reality is decades of inaction, of politicians allowing fossil fuel companies to profit from pumping out deadly emissions.
And over the last month or so, they've made about £7 or £8 billion. Yeah, whilst they're, ramping the prices up at the pumps, at the same time as they're contributing to the climate crisis. Of course, the cite that this is, because look what the Iranian regime are doing in the Strait of Hormuz. We've hardly got any. There's hardly any left. We're going to have to charge you a lot of money because we don't really have it. Oh, we've made £8 billion and we won't be paying a lot of tax on that, will we? So, okay. Worked out for them, hasn't it? Meanwhile, energy bills as well are rocketing because of a consequence of this.
Have guaranteed the extreme weather we are seeing right now, and we will see for the rest of our lifetimes. But there is still time to stop total breakdown. So let me speak directly to the Prime Minister. If we are to secure a livable future for our children and for our grandchildren, there can be no new drilling for oil and gas. On this, the science is crystal clear. As politicians, we have a moral responsibility to do what is right for the people we serve, even when it's not politically convenient.
Yeah, and I personally campaigned on that specific issue down in London with JSO for the best part of, 2.5, 3 years. Eventually, Labour were elected. By that time, we managed to convince all of the parties, apart from the Tories, to agree to no new licences, a moratorium on oil, coal and gas. That includes Rosebank, that includes Jackdaw, oil and gas fields in the North Sea. And if the moratorium's lifted, then don't be surprised if certain orange vests don't get lifted off the coat hangers.
And I know that whatever our differences, we both care deeply about the people of this country and the future of our planet. So when the time comes, I hope you will have the courage to be truthful, be brave, and hold firm to your party's commitment to no new oil and gas drilling in the North Sea, including both Rosebank and Jackdaw.
Well,
now, some will say we can't
don't say I never give you anything.
Afford to make these changes. These last few weeks are showing we can't afford not to. We are facing an existential threat. People are dying. People are scared. It is time to act. And when we do, we won't just avoid the worst effects of climate breakdown. We will lower bills permanently, help our communities thrive, and give a grounded sense of hope for generations to come. I'm so proud to be joined by 4 people who, in their own ways, have dedicated their lives to this country. And so first, I am absolutely honoured to introduce Carl Benfield, a former soldier and engineer who served in the Royal Engineers for 16 years, protecting the people of this country. Thank you for your service, and I'm delighted to introduce Carl Benfield. Carl.
Before Carl speaks, and I've seen clips of him speaking before, I think he is extraordinarily good. I'm not certain if he'll bring this up, but of course, as a consequence of the breakdowns within society that I mentioned, food shortages, water shortages, a population only being 9 meals away from revolution, perhaps. With it, of course, comes a huge amount of strain on the police, and then if it goes even further on a larger scale, I don't want to throw the term martial law around, but you could be looking at that, and that strain is then put forward on the military as well. There are going to be global wars over this. In fact, it's very easy to argue that we've already started and we've been going that way for a long time as the capitalist entities that be try and grab what resources are left and the profits that come with them, of course, but you have to factor all of those things in. But fortunately, some people within the military can see sense, can see the true picture, and that's this gentleman who you're about to hear.
Thank you, Zack. For 16 years, I served in the Royal Engineers and deployed on operations around the world, including Bosnia, Sierra Leone, Kosovo, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I left the military in part because I grew exhausted watching successive governments make reckless strategic decisions while ignoring the existential crisis right here at home. As a soldier and an engineer, I was used to conducting threat assessments and defensive plans. It's clear to me that climate change is the single greatest threat to human security that we face. Removing climate resilience from our national defence and security agenda was an act of complete strategic blindness. You cannot defend a nation if you refuse to acknowledge the very force that makes its infrastructure obsolete, that burns its countryside, and that threatens its food and water supply. Since leaving the armed forces, I've put my engineering background to work to try and mitigate some of these effects, working in renewables, timber frame building manufacturing, and clean heating and cooling systems.
Never mind. In fact, forget the whole live stream. We're all going round to Doc's for some apple crumble. Right now. Get the kettle on, Doc. Just email us your address. No, put that away, Phil. We're finished. We go. Good night. Only joking.
From a technical standpoint, this crisis is entirely solvable. But more
serious.
than that, transitioning to a renewables-based economy and climate resilience is a massive economic opportunity. It drives skilled domestic jobs. It fuels a healthy economy, and it shields our nation from the unpredictable chaos of global oil price volatility. Energy security is national security. So the engineering is ready, the economic case is clear. What we lack is bold political leadership. Zack's right. A government's first duty is to keep its citizens safe. Ignoring extreme heat and raging fires isn't just complacency, it's a dereliction of duty. We need an immediate Cobra-level response. We need climate change reinstated at the top of our defence and security agenda. And we need the bold leadership of Zack Polanski for our nation. Thank you.
Well, green indeed. Well said there. Acknowledging the truth, acknowledging what needs to be done. Certainly, Zack Polanski is the only politician with influence at the moment who can implement that kind of thing, because you're not going to get it from Burnham or any other neoliberal. Who's the next guest speaker?
I'll now hand over to James Rogers, who's a firefighter in London. James.
So I have seen this speaker. Not sure if it was the full clip, but this is excellent as well. Of course, well, I'll just give one example. Whilst I was protesting with JSO in 2022, of course, during the 40-degree summer that we had that year as well, it was in fact the London Fire Brigade's busiest era since the Blitz. And of course that was 4 years ago.
When people talk about climate change, they often talk about the year 2050. I'm a firefighter. I want to talk about now. Because for firefighters, climate change isn't a prediction, it's a shift we're already working. Climate change is the fire call to multiple back gardens alight, children's clothing burning on the washing line. Climate change is the acrid smell as you effect entry into a flat because someone has succumbed to heat stroke and hasn't been checked on in weeks. Climate change is the sound of people in floods of tears when they're stuck in a lift, 20 floors up, in a 30-degree heat. Climate change is the taste of dust in your dry mouth, watching a fire sweep uncontrollably across a park you used to play football in as a child in your summer holidays. Climate change is this becoming a day-to-day reality. This week, I've spoken to my colleagues from all over the United Kingdom, and they have said, no one wants to admit it, but the heat is getting to all of us. We're getting shorter with each other, and we're finishing jobs feeling like we've done a full day's work, even before lunch. Another said, "My station gets very hot inside, and there isn't a place I can find relief from the heat whilst at work. It leaves me having more headaches and brain fogs, less able to do my job."
Oh, I'm sorry, but the line on the charts has to carry on going up, so you just have to stand there and work and suffer, won't you? That will be dictated from someone's air-conditioned office, I'm sure.
After 24 years in the job, another firefighter said to me, "When are we finally going to get the workwear designed for this climate?" Everyone who works in the fire brigade is feeling the exhaustion. We expect the fires. We expect the floods. We expect the road traffic collisions. What we didn't expect was for the extreme heat itself to become the emergency. Not just for the public, for the people responding to it too. Climate change is rapidly changing the conditions in which every part of our job happens. Make no mistake, we will turn up. Don't fear the sound of our sirens. It's the sound of help on its way. We will keep responding. We will keep adapting. The question isn't whether us firefighters will do our job. The question is whether the rest of us are willing to do ours. The climate crisis is stretching the fire service long before it makes headlines. And whilst the same debates continue to happen, whilst fossil fuels are exploited from the earth for the profit of the few, our jobs are getting harder, days longer, resources thinner, and incidents more severe. Major fires can start with a single spark. Every solution starts with a decision to act. Every action that cuts emissions, protects our green spaces, teaches our children to care, supports resilience, or helps a vulnerable neighbour matter. Our future isn't decided by one big decision, but millions of small ones. And the longer we wait, the harder it becomes. For communities, for governments, and yes, for firefighters too. Because the climate crisis isn't coming, it's calling 999. It's now my pleasure to hand over to Dr. Veena Agrawal, a GP in Bristol and the Climate and Sustainability Co-Lead and Clinical Advisor at the Royal College of GPs. Thank you.
Very well said from the firefighter there, and that was really dauntingly realistic, the way he described the scenes that firefighters face when they go to somebody's home, one of the unfortunate victims of this heat wave. And I say unfortunate, as it's not fortunate obviously, but in the sense that it's a consequence of capitalism that brought us here. But beside the point, what he described, is part of their day-to-day job now because of this. So let's hear from General Practitioner next. I've not seen this speaker.
Hi everyone. The climate crisis is a health crisis. As a GP, I have been seeing firsthand the health impact of the recent heat waves. Ambulances are so stretched, we couldn't get an ambulance for a patient with sepsis or another one with very low oxygen levels because the ambulance service was completely overwhelmed. And indeed, the London ambulance service saw its busiest ever recorded day during the heat wave in June, on the 26th of June. That's even busier than during the days and the height of the COVID pandemic.
I didn't actually know that. What was the headline on that one?
Emergency.
That one's going in the bank. Believe me, busiest day ever for the ambulance service. Wow, and we all remember what COVID was like, unfortunately. Some of us have tried to unremember, but wow, that says how bad it is.
Seeing people having more asthma attacks, having flares up of their chronic lung disease, so extreme they need to be in hospital, more people having heart attacks, strokes, are having falls and collapsing due to the heat, especially those who are frail and more vulnerable. We're seeing people having mental health crises, which increase when there's a heat wave, and lots of people's kidney functioning worsening and needing to be hospitalised as a result. And this is an issue of inequalities, as the most vulnerable people, such as those who are elderly, people who have learning disabilities, those who are homeless, or have pre-existing heart and lung and kidney disease, they're getting very dehydrated and needing to be admitted to hospital. The hospitals are also completely overwhelmed. Many people are suffering from heat stroke, even just from being inside their houses, because our housing isn't set up for these temperatures. And people are becoming lonely and isolated because they can't leave their homes to go outside, and many activities are being cancelled.
Damn right!
In addition, the NHS is not set up for these temperatures. GP surgeries and hospitals have seen failure of critical infrastructure for their IT, for their phones, and for operating theatres. Operations have had to be cancelled due to this in hospitals. And the buildings aren't designed for the heat, and this is leading to both patients and staff suffering from illness as a result of this heat inside of our buildings. The official data showed that an extra almost 3,000 deaths occurred within just 1 week in June during the heat waves. And that's almost double that was recorded in the season in 2025. In Europe, those deaths are 14,000 in that same period. We need to act now. The climate crisis is a health crisis. Thank you.
Well said. Very well said.
Finally, I'll hand you over to a man who probably needs no introduction, broadcaster and environmental campaigner Chris Packham.
Yes. Shush. Shush now. Phil. Quiet. It's always quiet in this studio when Chris Packham's talking. Let's see what he's got to say. It's always excellent. Top guy.
To the disappointment of many, football didn't come home this summer. But to the pain and suffering of millions, climate breakdown has. And our government and media response has displayed a total dereliction of duty in a time of extreme crisis. As we've heard, in May and June, there were 3,000 deaths attributed to the heat domes that have hung over the UK. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke, stress of heart and kidneys, and of course those mental health issues that you've just talked about. In Europe, the figure is somewhere between 14 and 20,000 up until the end of July, and it's expected to double by the end of this summer. So we're looking at maybe potentially 50,000 deaths across Europe.
Fuck me.
If these deaths had been the result of terrorism or a pandemic, the government would have cancelled its summer holiday. It would have held Cobra meetings, and there would be public information campaigns, the likes of which we saw during COVID, designed to protect us in this time of crisis. And yet, what do we get?
Burnham.
We get rumours of possibly more drilling for oil and gas.
Yeah.
And we get articles in the Telegraph which suggest that we ought to adapt to a Mediterranean climate.
Yeah. That is beyond batshit crazy. Well, it alludes to what I was referring to earlier. I was talking more about people on social media. But no, the Telegraph and their readers. Complete delusion that that is what it is going to be like.
If that isn't reckless and irresponsible, I don't know what is. What we do need at this point is to listen to the science, not to the ongoing malevolent raft of mis- and disinformation that's perpetuated in politics, in public life, and certainly across social media.
And that's why you should subscribe to My Left Eye, cutting to the core of truth on all matters, including environment. Don't forget to hit thumbs up on the stream as you join us, people. I see Ogham the Bold now with us in chat, so good evening to you, Solidari-Tea.
If we listen to the science, we see that the climate models that were devised in the 1990s have actually proved to be pretty accurate. But those who do try and transmit the information to us, people like the IPCC, which are often derided as alarmists by the right and the far right.
That's the independent panel on climate change that Chris is referring to.
Have actually been too cautious. What we see, for instance, when it comes to the heat waves, is that they are occurring more quickly and more regularly than those models suggest. We're updating the science as it happens. What we also see is that it's not just a lack of water which is leading to the drought, although that might seem painfully obvious. It's actually being exacerbated by extremely higher temperatures. And that has an impact on the environment that I care so much about and we are all dependent upon. Across Europe, there have been 35,000, across the world, there have been 35,000 wildfires. In the UK, there have been 66 major wildfires, but let's not focus on 66 because that sounds quite a small number. In one fire and rescue service, Berkshire, they've attended over 250 outdoor fires so far this summer. So the number of grass fires and so forth is going to be significantly higher than that, drawing upon an underfunded, under-resourced organisation at the front line of dealing with a crisis that is impacting all of us. So, lives have been lost, homes have been destroyed, businesses have been ruined. The clean-up cost, just look at Palisades in America, it's incomprehensible. We simply can't afford it. And then
yeah, it's going to be like beyond, the total GDP of the country eventually. That's it. Bankruptcy.
My perspective, the damage to wildlife, which has got scant mention, of course, because as ever we put human interest first because they're most immediate. And you might think, well, Chris is bound to bang on about the wildlife because he loves the birds and the bees. Yes, the birds and the bees, which form resilient ecosystems which allow us to produce the food that we eat.
Yeah, because we're fucked without bees, and the amount that they do, pollination, huge amount for so many ecosystems, hence the Save the Bees campaign. And I've been out on protests a lot of times, I've seen people dressed up as bees. We have an affiliation with the Bee in Manchester for other reasons. And you'll often see vehicles with the logo on the back or the side, and people even have it tattooed on themselves for both reasons as well. And it might seem, to a lot of the climate deniers such an insignificant thing, or in fact a convenience. Oh, well, I don't like birds or bees anyway. That'll be better for me. Just the complete ignorance as well as hubris.
We have to protect nature in order to protect ourselves. So you might think, okay, the UK, the wildfires, they've all been out there on the heaths in Suffolk. They've been burning patches of heathland on the Isle of Wight. Not many homes have been destroyed. Well, the Ordnance Survey say that 1.8 million homes are at risk in the UK.
1.8 million. That's everything that Starmer promised, plus 300,000. Starmer's plans would almost, in a sense, literally go up in smoke because of this. Sorry, that's the first. Excuse me, that's the first time I've compared those two things in my head. It's that out the window, isn't it?
By looking at their maps and seeing which of homes are adjacent to areas which can, have significant wildfire risk. 1.8 million homes at
1.8
risk.
million.
So far, compared to Europe, we've just got away lightly, and we've just been lucky. How many firefighting planes do you think that we've got in the UK?
0.
How many firefighting planes in the UK?
0.
Exactly. 0 planes. Which is why, as Zack said, when that fire was burning at Dunwich, the National Trust had to hire a helicopter and pay for it to drag water out of the sea and dump on that precious piece of habitat.
Yeah, I heard about that. And again, just goes to illustrate the lack of preparation that we have here. Everything is going to be disastrously retroactive. You get the sense of that. There's no preventative measures being taken. It's going to be a case of just let it run its course, and then, of course, after the horse is bolted, we'll shut the gates and lock them. Essentially, the same attitude towards climate change that Alexander Boris de Fafel Johnson had towards the COVID pandemic, but with more dead people.
Because there are no firefighting planes. Is there a public warning system in place which will tell people when there's a risk of wildfire so that they can be prepared to evacuate and have evacuation plans in place? Well, do you know what? There is. It's available to the Fire and Rescue Service, but it isn't available to the public because it's deemed to be unreliable. Is it unreliable, or is it just a bit too scary?
Or are you maybe just a capitalist tosser, whoever Packham was quoting there? Obviously not making that remark towards Packham. Yeah, but the reasons for the lack of the correct political decisions is always evident, of course. Private profits, corporate and political corruption that comes with it.
We couldn't even instigate a ban on disposable barbecues.
No.
Okay.
And in the past, of course, you referred to the 90s earlier. During the 80s and 90s, of course, the ozone was the main sort of environmental topic. And at the time, countries got together and said, we know the cause, it's these fucking CFCs, we've got to get rid of them. Or else there's going to be, a hole in the ozone layer. The size of Rishi Sunak's ego. And it worked. And the ozone started to repair after the ban came in. And even back then, of course, the fossil fuel companies were raking in the profits, not as much as they are now. Of course, it's always ever-increasing record profits where they're concerned, but now it's just the corruption that has become so endemic.
There are the problems. What about the solutions? Because look, there's no point in just pointing out the problems. What we must do at this point is offer people real and accessible opportunities to be part of the solution rather than an ongoing part of the problem. Well, the first thing, we've already heard, we've got to enact far more rapidly that transition to renewable energy for energy security, to reduce the cost of energy and its volatility that we've seen constantly across the world this year, which is having a significant impact not just on the cost of oil, but on the cost of living and global economic stability. It would also generate jobs, as it has in those countries that have invested significantly in those industries, most notably
Jurassic Park.
Yes. And there are transferable jobs, of course, from fossil fuels into renewables as well. That's something that has to happen. We can't have the sort of Thatcherite tactic or neoliberal tactic of shutting down industries practically wholesale, or in some cases completely, without suitable replacement jobs. That's why in Margaret Thatcher's case, unemployment got over 2 million. And it was done on purpose. It was on purpose. It wasn't a sort of unwanted symptom or consequence of what she'd done. High unemployment was actually part of her tactic as well. It's just the kind of bastard that she actually was. And maybe 6 feet wasn't deep enough, if you ask me.
Drilling oil, Rosebank, Blackbird, Jackdaw is simply madness. We've got...
and the irony that, yeah, name it after a bird, name it after a wildlife species, when so many species are threatened by the actions of these fossil fuel companies, and to try and maybe clean up the image as well. Yeah, Jackdaw, why do I give it a... Rosebank. Rose, nice roses. They're very nice, aren't they? Very natural and pretty, and aren't birds fantastic? Yes, that's all we want people to think about as we siphon billions and billions of barrels worth of oil from the very heart of the planet, a substance which takes millions upon millions of years to evolve. And when it's gone, it's gone. And the next time it'll be around, it'll be made of us. And you dare say that on a macro scale, as a planet, maybe we deserve it. Maybe that would be the final irony of it all, of course, that the humans who killed themselves off by burning too much oil will end up as oil themselves one day, mixed in with all the plants and everything else, under millions of years of sedentary pressure, and so on. My goodness. What a time to be alive.
To just stop oil.
Yes.
We also need a transition.
Yes. Yes, he said it. He said it. I might even put my vest on now. It's not too far away from where I am at the moment.
In the way that we eat. This is integrally important when it comes to protecting the environment, everything that lives there, and ourselves. We need a
I'd be remiss if I didn't skip it back just a few seconds.
Which is having a significant impact, not just on the cost of oil, but on the cost of living and global economic stability. It would also generate jobs, as it has in those countries. We've got to just stop oil. We also need a transition in the way that we eat. This is integrally important when it comes to protecting the environment, everything that lives there, and ourselves.
I'll remind you as well, in case you didn't know, he actually did 2 talks back to back for Just Stop Oil that I was there helping out with. It was at the Quakers meeting house, not a million miles away from Leicester Square, that sort of area. Anyway, he was really good, despite the fact that he was having some, shall we say, digestive problems that particular week, and had come a long distance, and at the same time was filming a Channel 4 documentary, which has now been released. It's been out for a while now. Recommend you check that out, because he spoke to a few friends of mine, Louis McKechnie, who tied himself to the goalposts at Goodison Park, Everton's old football ground. You might remember that one from early in 2022, and a few other people. Yeah, that was a great day. I was there as well with a friend of the channel, Climate Lens, as well. Yeah, I remember the talks and the speaks as well. Sorry, I'm going on a nostalgic sort of side story here. Let's get back to the man himself.
We need a transition to a plant-based diet. It's healthier for bacon or sausage for breakfast this morning. Do you know that you've ingested a category A carcinogen, that's it, as toxic as tobacco? You may not. You may have just enjoyed your sausage and bacon. Why do you not know that processed red meat is actually really bad for you?
True.
Animal agriculture is responsible for 12% of greenhouse gas emissions in the UK. It's also the leading...
I And a lot of people, you know, I'm not saying go completely cold turkey, go vegan overnight. Some people choose to do it gradually or go vegetarian, gradually cut out red meat, cut out beef, if you can at least, please, because that's having the biggest CO2 impact as well as the reasons that Chris Packham just mentioned for processed meats and carcinogens and that kind of thing. And then maybe cut down one other thing. Maybe make it a thing to have certain days where you don't eat meats and integrate that, and that will help you along instead of going cold turkey. It all helps, of course. Unfortunately, as we've heard from other great speakers, like I believe Kevin Anderson was where I heard it first, that even if everybody on the planet went vegan tomorrow, that still wouldn't be enough to save us, but it would definitely have a large and positive impact as well, just to try and cut out as much as you can.
Driver of biodiversity loss, that biodiversity, that richness of life, that resilience in those ecological communities which we use to produce our food.
He's 60, I believe. He recently turned 60. He was talking about his youth and when he was a punk. Well, he says he still is a punk, but he remembers punk emerging, and the influence of punk is what he was talking about. I think that was earlier this year. And yeah, he passed 60 years old. Certainly doesn't look it. I know people who are in the 30s and 40s who don't look half as decent as he does, or still have as good a head of hair, for that matter, as someone else was alluding to in the chat earlier. So yeah, I believe he's 60, and he's definitely the once a punk, always a punk type. They say if you used to be a punk, you maybe never were in the first place. Or so I hear tell.
We've got to change the way that we eat and produce that food, and we've got to provide sufficient support for farmers through that transition. And at the moment, they're not getting that. In fact, they're getting less and less, and their life is becoming increasingly difficult. We've got to address the mis- and disinformation, and we've got to do that with positive information campaigns. We've got to have people's minds on the front foot so they know what's true before they hear the lies. Then they will question the lies. Otherwise, we know what happens. If you tell a lie frequently enough, it eventually becomes the truth. And that's what we're suffering from. We can't afford net zero. We can't not afford net zero. And we're beginning to see that that's the case.
Yeah, the people who turn around and say saving the planet's too expensive are absolute sociopaths. Absolute sociopaths. So, you know. Well, I was going to go off on one. I was going to go off on one again there, but I've been interrupted far too much.
We've got to sort out the media. I've been fantasising this year that we...
And Darren in chat, really sorry to hear that, brother. Solidarity from all of us here as well, as always.
Could perhaps criminalise climate denial. We should certainly criminalise irresponsible journalism. I've highlighted the Telegraph, but I'm going to leave you with something that I read on the BBC yesterday. How to survive a heatwave wedding. How to survive a heatwave wedding.
Really?
Point number 5. Beware of butter.
And it wasn't some... We're not talking about clickbait sort of thing either. This is a serious thing. How to... Denial isn't just a river in Africa, people, apparently.
Cream. This popular wedding cake ingredient is likely to melt if not kept cool. Likely to melt. A bit like my patience and all of our hope. It's
Indeed.
Time for bold, brave, informed leadership, and we're not getting it. We need Andy Burnham to step up before we and our only home burn down. Thank you.
Damn right!
Excellent, as always. Great guy, Chris Packham. We have Ian McKenna in the chat. Pleasure as always to see you. Solidarity. Hope you're doing well this eve. We're just going through this press conference, as you can see. I think there's going to be a bit of a Q&A next. I believe that Chris was the final guest. See how much of this we can tolerate. If it's the usual suspects, you know, Beth Rigby or whatever, or heaven forfend, Chris Mason from the BBC with
Thank you, that was pretty powerful.
Sorry, I wasn't having a seizure or anything. That was a shit impression of Chris Mason, BBC political editor. Let's see who they've got.
And thank you to all the speakers for your contributions. I'm going to take questions from the media in groups of 3, starting off with Will Meakin Durrant from PA. I think.
All right, PA.
Michael will be coming over to you. Thanks, Will.
Fair enough. Oh, PA, not AP. It doesn't matter. Just ask the question. Whoever it is.
Thank you very much, Zack Polanski. When war in Iran broke out, you called for the government to cover an energy bill rise of about £300. That would surely amount to a subsidy for fossil fuel producers. Have you changed your position on this? And to do those sorts of step changes, you'll need a seat at the table. And yet your personal polling has dropped slightly. Geraldine Coggins didn't quite make it in Manchester. And
the vote was up 14% in Manchester itself, and she was up in every other district. They've increased the vote.
Andy Burnham is in.
It was the best result ever for them in Manchester. What, you know, a slight dip in the polls.
Your sort of social media patch. So has your moment kind of been and gone?
Free fall like Reform.
Thank you, Will.
Labour.
Second, I've got Joe Pike from the BBC.
Oh, so he's taking 3 and then answering them in threes. Right, Pike, was it? At least it's not Mason.
Thank you.
You're calling for no new drilling in the North Sea, but in a cost of living crisis. What do you say to people who are struggling with their bills? And isn't there a role for oil and...
You'd say that renewables were up to 7 times cheaper, which you'd surely know if you were a fucking journalist worth your salt, instead of throwing that fucking shit. Come on. Cost of living crisis. It's called poverty as well, just in case you hadn't picked up too much right-wing syntax. BBC journalist. It is state media.
Gas while we transition. And a second quick one. The Conservatives are facing a lot of criticism for their selection of Joshua Bonehill-Payne as one of their councillors. Given that your party has also faced some criticism when it comes to the selection of candidates, do you believe in rehabilitation? I'm
referring to the story that we're going to come on to later. I'm sure that the Green Party have never inadvertently recruited a fucking neo-Nazi, as has happened to Kemi Badenoch, which we'll discuss shortly.
Thank you. Faye from Sky.
Faye... what's she called? Is it Dunaway?
You're delivering this message at a time when Andy Burnham
does
appear to be having a Burnham bounce in the polls, largely at the Greens' expense. So are you worried about that? And in talking about the environment today, is this you trying to regain some credibility on an issue that some critics within your own party say you haven't really been talking enough about since you've become leader?
Thank you.
Oh, I did see a muttering of that on social media earlier. Apparently the Green Party, the Green Party, and not just relative to other parties, but in their own right, aren't talking about the environment so much, according to certain sources. I would suggest that they go and get themselves a hearing aid, or because they're screaming it from the rooftops every single day. Yes, they're talking about more social policies, but not instead of, just as well of. Green policies have always been the top of their agenda. They always have. That's some nonsense, wherever that's come from. Very desperate. And all very negative question, all very naysaying in the theme or the vibe or the aura of the questions there, wasn't it? It was like, oh, okay, great, you got some real solutions to be said. What about this? What about that? No, just, oh, do you really think that in a cost of living crisis that we should stop drilling for oil and gas?
So beginning with Will,
Facepalm.
I think you always need a short-term plan and a longer-term plan. If you look at Spain, they doubled their renewable capacity. And what that meant is they went from having some of the highest bills in Europe to now having some of the lowest bills in Europe. So in the long term, we absolutely need to be investing in our renewable capacity and making sure that we're transitioning to a much cleaner energy system. At the same time, if people can't heat their homes right now, that obviously has to be the emergency issue. So when the war in Iran broke out, that's exactly why I called for subsidies. What I think we really need to look at is the £2.7 billion that we're giving as tax breaks to the fossil fuel companies that we should be ultimately putting into retraining workers, for instance, and making sure that we have jobs for the future in renewables, in nature, in the caring industries.
Why are we subsidising all these companies with money falling out of their pockets? In British Petroleum's case, literally more money than they know what to do with, and that's by their own words. That is by the director of British Petroleum having more money than they know what to do with, and then they go cap in hand to the government for a relatively measly £2.7 million, which compared to the 7 and 8 billion that they've made this summer alone is practically piss all. And the government turn around and say, yeah, sure, we don't have a, air quotes, cost of living crisis at all. 2.7 million's nothing. You can have that in a tax subsidy. What I'm getting at, people, the grand total of this comes to about £250 million a week that all of the companies get in tax subsidies. You can stick that on the side of a bastard bus if you want. Why doesn't Andy Burnham get one of his special B network buses out with that on the side for his next campaign? We subsidise fossil fuel companies £250 million a week. A week.
Amazing skills in those communities that ultimately need to be harnessed. And what we can't do is keep telling people that we can keep drilling for oil and gas. I'm going to come on to jobs in a second, but it's important to say somewhere like Jackdaw, reports show that would be 27 new jobs. It's just absurd misinformation to claim that we need to keep drilling for jobs.
27 new jobs.
Putting aside.
Oh, we need this for job creation. You'd probably get more if you just opened up a local takeaway franchise or whatever. 27 jobs.
The fact that we're having an existential threat to our planet. So, of course, we need to transition.
I know people who've had 27 jobs.
On poll ratings, and it's similar to the question Faye asked. And the first thing I'd say is I'm really proud of Geraldine Coggins and the campaign that everyone ran in Greater Manchester. It's important to say that we upped our vote share by 80%, which I would say is a pretty impressive increase in a couple of years. On top of that, when you look at every single borough in Manchester, there's one borough where we remain the same in vote share. In the other 9 boroughs, we increased, and in many substantially. So I think there's really, really strong growth there. I think
there is, and I've wanted to put this question to you a couple of times on stream. I might as well do it now, lest I forget. What do you think about that? Because we did analyse the 10 different boroughs. Should they focus more on where they're strongest, or do they need to be spreading out more and lifting up those areas that only got a sort of single-digit raise in vote share last time around? 14% was the highest here in Manchester, but then it dropped off quite significantly after that. So let me know your thoughts. That would be if they had the choice, because, of course, there's still a relatively small party financially, but the enthusiasm is growing and they're getting a lot of volunteers. Certainly know that. But it's doable. It's doable. But, God, we're talking about the mayoral elections here. So the next one, obviously, is a long way down the road at the moment. We'll come back to that one as it happens.
I think it's also important to recognise the context that Prime Minister Andy Burnham is having a honeymoon, and good luck to him on that. He was a very popular mayor of Greater Manchester.
Well, it's going to be a very short honeymoon with the policies that he's implemented, and like in Manchester, £2 bus fares aren't just going to hypnotise us and romanticise us into forgetting about all the other shit policies that he's not only enacting, but the policies he should be enacting that he's ignoring as well. Andy Carter in the chat. Nice to see you, brother. Hope you're well. Solidari-Tea. Likes a good pun as well.
Become the Prime Minister. He's doing announcements every single day. I think you as the press will be the first to acknowledge that there's often very little substance to the announcement, and we're going to have to wait until October to see what happens with the budget. Look, taking my leadership role aside, I'm also a citizen of this country. I want this government to do well. I want them to lower bills. I want them to tackle the climate crisis, the nature crisis. And if they do all of that, then yes, that might make things harder for the Green Party. But I welcome that, because then what we can do...
Oh, I just got an inkling. This is a gut feeling. Bearing in mind I've not seen this yet. One of them is going to point out that he's said nothing about Ukraine and Russia, or he's not dedicated any money to Ukraine or something like that, which they're going to criticise him for, I think. That's a side suspicion, just a gut feeling there. I'll see how much of this I can get through, but we'll be moving on probably before the end of this.
Is focus on making things even better. And I think my biggest achievement, or one of my biggest achievements in my coming up to a year of being leader of the Green Party, was toppling a very unpopular Prime Minister.
Has it been a year?
I have no doubt that if we had not won Gorton and Denton, Keir Starmer would not have had the leadership crisis he
Yeah, it has nearly been a year. Yeah. Wow, that's flown.
had. And we wouldn't have had the version of Andy Burnham turn up that criticises neoliberalism. And obviously I very much agree with that, and that's something I've been talking about all year, and something the Green Party's been talking about for decades. The criticism isn't enough, though. If you criticise the problem, but don't offer the real credible solutions to change that problem, then people will ultimately get sick of you. And I think what I really hold on to is...
Like Keir Starmer.
Ultimately, we have truth on our side. Because if Andy Burnham kind of wants to keep kicking things into the long grass and talks about drilling in the North Sea, for instance, reality will catch up on him. So I hope he does the right things. And if he does the right things, then we'll focus on what he can do even better. But all the evidence so far, including the appointment of Shabana Mahmood...
And as well, something I've not pointed out yet, but it's not as though Rosebank and Jackdaw are just literal massive taps that you have to turn on with a very large spanner. No, it takes several years of development, and you can apply that same argument to those who turn around and go, oh, well, what about nuclear power then? If you're talking 20 years before a nuclear power plant comes online. It takes a similar amount of time for new oil and gas developments, which does literally nothing for the energy price crisis that we have today.
Not putting Ed Miliband, I believe, where he belongs. Some of the continuation of some dire policy, including in relation to Palestine, I think points to a Prime Minister that wants to say the right things but isn't willing to back it up with action. To be fair, he's pretty new. Let's wait and see. On the North Sea, I think I've partly answered that.
I'm not going to be fair.
The important thing
I've not got time to be fair.
Is that if we decarbonise by 2050,
I think I am being fair.
That would cost less than a single energy shock. And we've now had 2 energy shocks in just a few years. So the first thing to say is we cannot keep waiting. We cannot keep hoping for magic technologies. The technology already exists.
Yeah, carbon
what is
capture.
lacking is the political will to over...
You can forget carbon capture. That's a myth. That's a pseudoscience. That's not happening. Keir Starmer was still happy to give these spurious companies quite a lot of money as well. I think the real solutions are there, as Polanski's saying. We have them now.
Become barriers. Those barriers aren't even particularly strong. They just require leadership. And we often talk about how to invest in things and the bond markets. And it is important to recognise that we need to take the bond markets with us. But one of the ways we do that is by having a clear plan that is visionary, that people can get behind. Now, that clear plan clearly has to tackle inequality in our society. It clearly has to tackle the jobs crisis and making sure that we're tackling unemployment.
If you can have war bonds, what about environment bonds? Environment debate. Oh, yeah. What? You can make a market out of it? That'll get a few people's attention.
But it absolutely has to have climate and nature at the heart of it. These are the fundamental risks to us as a civilization. If we don't have nature, we don't have anything. Everything collapses. And I thought Chris's phrase was brilliant. Like, you can obsess about the birds and the bees, but actually what you're obsessing about there is one, nature in itself, which is intrinsically important. But also, even if you take the most selfish perspective, we need those birds and bees. We need those pollinators. We need those food and ecosystems to survive and exist.
And I bid you all, as I did while Chris was speaking, ignore that open goal of a pun regarding the birds and the bees, if you'd be so kind as to refrain. That would be most distasteful.
On councillors, I don't know the individual circumstance of this individual councillor, so I'm going to be careful about wading in on a case that I don't know the detail on. But I do believe in rehabilitation. I think someone can say something or even do something and make a mistake. Now, I think the important point is that we don't just apologise and move on. There has to be a clear recognition of what they did wrong and what they're going to do in the future to rectify it. I don't believe anyone should be pushed out of public life permanently. I do believe that there has to be spaces for people to rehabilitate, no matter what they say or no matter how heinous what they do is. I think there clearly has to be a relationship, though, between a candidate, whether that's for a councillor or an MP, and the voting public, that ultimately they have to re-earn trust. And again, it can't just be a meaningless apology. It has to be a clear direction that the lessons are going to be learned. To Faye, the first thing I would push back on before answering your question directly is I've been talking about the nature and climate crisis from the day that I was elected as the Green Party leader. And I've been in so many interviews where people have said to me, you're not talking about climate and nature. And I've said, please ask me a question about it. It would be my absolute honour, and I would delight in being able to talk about these things. What I have done, and I think is key to your question, is link the climate and nature question to the issues that people are talking about every day. Now, I wish people were talking about the climate crisis every day, and that's partly why I've called this...
And they are linked, of course. It's not like what Farage is doing, pointing at the coast. This is why your bills are so high. This is why everything's so expensive. This is why wages are so low, and I'll make them even lower by eradicating the minimum wage, as well as riding roughshod through welfare. It's their fault. It's not capitalism or the climate crisis or right-wing politics.
Press conference today, because I've seen over the last few days and few weeks the shocking scenes of wildfires, the number of 3,000 deaths. It's a number that can just kind of get said, but I think we need to sit in that 3,000 people have died because of the extreme heat. And I recognise the platform I have as leader of the Green Party. I recognise that we have 230,000 members. I recognise that our polling was higher. It's still much stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah, they'll get past 250,000, I'm almost certain. I'm not a member myself, but I do vote Green. That's just because I'm already a member of another smaller grassroots party, well, for now, at least, anyway. But they'll break that 250.
And I recognise that with that platform and with that moment, I want to draw attention and do everything we can to push the Prime Minister to take action on what is such a crucial subject. Now, I've focused on the climate and nature crisis today, but we already heard from our guests as well that this does link in. This is a way to lower bills.
You won't
this
see
is a
Andy
way
Burnham
to
doing
transform some of the inequality in our society. This is a way to create the jobs of the future and to make sure we have more cohesive communities. So I don't think we can or should talk about climate and nature in a silo. I do think there are times, though, when people have died and we know that more heat waves will come, and we know that next year we could have even more extreme temperatures, that there's a moment to say we can put the cost of living crisis to one side for a moment. We really need to talk about climate and nature, but it is important to keep linking it back and let people know if they're worried that the climate crisis is going to be off the backs of working people, I'm worried about that too. It does not need to be that way. We need to recognise that BP have doubled their profits during the Iran war. We've got Barclays, who've gone up a third in their profits, who are advising some of their clients
Barclays,
to say that they can profit in the extreme heat. That's egregious. It's grotesque. And
it is, and there are other banks, or there have been other banks. Some have pulled out. Banks and insurance companies come into this as well. I won't name a list of names, but Barclays are one of the big players.
It needs calling out. And what I would say to the press and the media in the room is I can call it out as a political leader, but I think you also have a role to call it out. And I know some of you do, and so this isn't blanket calling the media one thing. We have journalists doing brilliant work. But the amount that we...
Yeah, very few of them will be in that room. And certainly a lot of alternative media and journalism is doing important work, like, oh, I don't know, say, we're doing here on My Left Eye, which is another reason to smash the thumbs up button on this live stream, people.
About whatever Nigel Farage or Reform want to talk about, and the little we hear about the climate and nature crisis is pretty glaring. And so I hope this moment can be a reset where we can talk about the really important things more. Thank you.
Right, proper reset. I was going to listen to a few more questions, but time is pressing now. And yeah, climate crisis out, as well as running out of time. But that was very good from Polanski and all of the speakers. Apologies, I've forgotten the names of the members of the emergency services, but all three of them were very good as well. And Chris Packham, of course. If you want it, there's maybe about another 10 or 15 minutes of the conference if you want to check that out for yourselves later on. But we'll sort of segue into something we've criticised Andy Burnham a lot for his shortcomings on speaking out about his plans for environment, or what he has said as certainly being lacking in what's required. So we're going to take a look at an overall assessment from another YouTuber that I'm certain that most or all of you might already be familiar with, actually. But this time, a lot more people are recognising that maybe Andy Burnham isn't as left-wing as people think he is, and make very strong arguments for the fact that he could be definitively neoliberal or neoconservative. So we're going to take a look at this from TLDR, who are a really good sort of channel for stats and things. They're kind of middle of the road politically. I obviously despise the term centrism or moderate. What I mean is they try not to be too biased in the reporting of their issues. They're not really sort of the kind of channel with a political agenda like we have as socialists here on My Left Eye, but even the air quotes neutrals, if you want to put it that way, beginning to recognise already a few things about the former mayor of this here town.
A Blairite, a Brownite and a Corbynite walk into a bar. The barman says, "What'll you have, Andy?" Well, not particularly funny. This joke has done the rounds in Whitehall circles for a number of years, with those telling it attempting to highlight Burnham's seemingly inconsistent ideological positioning. As Prime Minister, there seems to be an assumption that Burnham will govern as a left-winger. Already, he's spoken about Britain taking some wrong turns in the 1980s under Margaret Thatcher. He's introduced new cost of living support, and he's pledged to end rough sleeping. However, there is also evidence of Burnham actually moving to the right somewhat, with key government positions being occupied by those on the right of the Labour Party, and suggestions that Burnham could cut government spending in certain places, for instance on welfare. So in this video, we're going to have a look into this, exactly what Burnham has done that suggests he's moving right, and whether it's fair to characterise Andy Burnham as a leader that is pivoting to the right.
I would say that he's always been there, he's just not sort of spoken in line with where he sits. Of course, he's been a weather vane of sorts to try and appease the left, and now it's come to the crunch, and he actually, well, I was just about to say, he has a modicum of power. He did have a modicum of power as Mayor of Manchester, but now he has the highest seat in office. So we'll find out. Do go and subscribe to TLDR as well. Shout out, another shout out. Sorry. Just make a note. Don't talk whilst coughing. Carry on.
Which flag is better, Canada or Iceland? How about Japan or Mexico, Albania or Barbados?
Give us a chance. I think.
How about a Battle of the Dragons?
Wales, obviously.
Wales or Bhutan? Cast your vote in our official flag ranking survey by clicking the link in the description. Now, when Burnham became Prime Minister last week, one of his first tasks was to form
flag survey. Okay.
A cabinet.
Go and do the flag
For weeks,
survey.
there'd been frenzied speculation about exactly what positions certain politicians will be given, notably allies such as Ed Miliband and Lisa Nandy. However, one of the most spoken about potential cabinet members was Shabana Mahmood, someone particularly controversial in Labour circles as a result of her immigration reforms. As Home Secretary under Keir Starmer, Mahmood introduced the Asylum and Immigration Bill, which will increase the forced removal of people refused asylum, tightens definition.
That was towards Shabana Mahmood, not the video, not TLDR.
Under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, or ECHR, to limit its use in asylum cases, and creates a new tribunal for immigration and human rights appeals, which will be used before cases are sent to judges. Mahmood has also pushed forward new changes to indefinite leave to remain, suggesting that the time taken to qualify should increase from 5 to 10 years. This was not included in the Asylum and Immigration Bill, however, and will instead likely be changed via second.
How are you supposed to live 10 years when people are literally hunting you down and trying to kill you in your own fucking country? How are you supposed to do that for 10 years without knowing that you've got a place somewhere that you'll be safe?
Legislation. In addition to these changes, Mahmood further frustrated those on the left of the party for her suggestion, again back when she was Home Secretary under Starmer, that AI could play more of a role in combating crime. Mahmood announced in January that the government plans to increase the number of facial recognition bans from 10 to 50, and in an interview with Tony Blair, explained that she wanted to achieve, by means of AI and technology, what Jeremy Bentham tried to do with the Panopticon. For obvious reasons, these proposed changes frustrated those on the left, who didn't want to see Mahmood anywhere near Burnham's new government.
Frustrated those on the left, or just anyone who doesn't want an Orwellian Big Brother society. They'd put a camera up your fucking arse if they could get away with it.
Despite this, there was some speculation that Mahmood could potentially be given one of the great offices of state, potentially even the role of Chancellor. In the end, Mahmood was reappointed to her role of Home Secretary. This was the first sign that Burnham's government was moving to the right. The other signs came largely from his statements on policy. Now, one of the big rebellions that severely damaged Keir Starmer's authority were his plans to cut the UK's welfare bill. Keir Starmer had originally planned to narrow the eligibility for personal independence payments, or PIP, and to introduce restrictions on universal credit. However, facing a major backbench rebellion orchestrated by those on the left of the party, he was forced to back down on these changes. Burnham, though, seems keen to succeed where Starmer has failed, with him reportedly plotting to crack down on youth sickness benefits in order to pay for social care and defence. While we don't yet know exactly how this crackdown will work, it's notable that
you can picture him literally dragging people out of the job centre and into the army recruitment office as they cough and wheeze and splutter or collapse, go pale, sweat, perhaps collapsing under the heat of the heatwave and the climate crisis. But no, we need you to sign up straight away. You've got oil companies to go and die for, young person.
At the very same time he's discussing this, Burnham is also announcing an extra £8.4 billion in investment for Britain's nuclear deterrent. Promising to cut welfare by increasing defence spending certainly isn't the sort of move that those on the left of Labour were likely wanting him to make. On economic policy, there have been rumours since he took office that Burnham may be plotting to radically change how the tax system works. There have been rumours that he may be considering introducing changes to the way that council tax and stamp duty works, with some outlets suggesting that he may introduce a 0.48...
No, it's just, well, any of that's just going to be a lot of things. First of all, the old Tory way, any money that comes in will only go to areas that voted for him, whilst others are left deprived. A lot of that money, even if it is legit and spread out, will go to private companies. Here's a classic example from Manchester with the development. out of a £1 billion budget, 600 million. This is for Greater Manchester, yeah. 600 million of that, 60% of it, went to just one company. So you're going to see this on a national level.
8% annual charge on the value of a property, or maybe something simpler like an increase in the tax-free personal allowance, the threshold of which has been frozen since 2021. However, already Burnham has started to pour cold water on these ideas. Downing Street explicitly stated that rumours about council tax and stamp duty were not true and pure speculation. On the
well, I didn't really mean it, you know.
Tax-free allowance, Burnham suggested that he isn't making an immediate commitment, but pointed out that it could be reviewed at the budget. Again, this demonstrates that perhaps Burnham isn't going to be as radical as some of those on the left may have thought. On the big changes, reviewing the way that council tax and stamp duty work, and potentially bringing in the type of land value tax, which he had previously spoken out in favour of, Burnham has been clear that they're not being considered. It's only the smaller, more incremental changes that he appears willing to legislate. So there are a number of ways that we can see that Andy Burnham is moving, potentially to the right. However, Burnham is something of a complex political figure. He can't simply be characterised by someone moving Labour to the right, because in many other ways...
I think it is pretty clear, obviously, you know. I've looked into it maybe a bit more as a Mancunian, a bit more familiar with him and his politics and what he says compared to what he does, and yeah, I've bumped into him a couple of times in my time as well, but he's straight up neo-lib. He's very capable of talking the talk but not walking the walk. But you could say that about his predecessor.
Also pivoted to the left. Already, Burnham has committed more than £10 billion in extra government spending. He's outlined new cost of living support, he's capped bus fares, and he's already earmarked an extra £340 million of government support over the next 3 years to help reduce rough sleeping. On top of this, he's established Number 10 North, a symbolic and practical way of trying to move power out of Westminster and make the country fairer to those living in the regions. Burnham has claimed that this will have 3 purposes: to increase public control of essential utilities such as water, energy and housing, to reindustrialise swathes of the country, and to regenerate towns, prioritising places that have been left behind.
And to save themselves a 2 hour and 9 minutes Piccadilly to Euston train journey once or twice a week. They're not being divisive, it's just that they've split Downing Street into 2, and now it's a private Northern MPs club. Of course, I'm biased as a North Englander, I will stress. But I do think it's ridiculous. Well, if you want to give the whole of the north of the UK its own, the north of England, nearly did it again. Yeah, its own agency, its own independence, then I'd be right behind that. But this is just farce. It's a mirage. It's an attempt to make it look as though you've devolved politics and given more agency to the Northwest when you haven't. It's very poor. It's relating to from. It was Vic Reeves' Big Night Out is the full title of the show. You were talking about in the chat there.
Very poor indeed.
All of these things point to a Prime Minister that is trying...
Oh, shit. Sorry.
A Blairite, a Brown...
Restarted the clip. Well, God, he was about here, wasn't he?
Annual charge on the value of a property, or maybe something simpler like an increase he had previously spoken out in favour of. Burnham believes that we can see that Andy Burnham is moving, potentially to the right. However, Burnham is something of a complex political figure. Extra £340 million power out of Westminster.
That's the one.
And make the country fairer to those living in the region.
But they've got the fucking door as well. Oh, cringe. Fucking ring an ambulance. It's fucking... Get me to the cringe trauma ward. Fuck's sake. We'll get a door as well, exactly like... Fuck off. Fuck off. That is fucking lame. That really is fucking lame.
Burnham has claimed that this will have three purposes: to increase public control of essential utilities such as water, energy, and housing, to reindustrialize swathes of the...
Okay, I'll throw you this one. I will let it play on more. Trump is from New York. Let's say hypothetically, right, that he didn't want to go to Washington, didn't want to live in the White House, set up his own White House New York, White House DC or something in New York, so we'd all be ripping the fucking piss. We really would. Everybody would. The same way that they've done with what he's done to the actual White House, the fucking absolute monstrosity that he has turned it into with this ballroom and the fucking UFC shows and all of that business. But we would. And it's the same with that and that door. It's only been 2 weeks. I fucking can't stand it. You know, it used to be that I was very dismissive because, okay, Burnham's not even an MP. Don't talk, you know, so many people would still talk about Andy Burnham as being what the country needed and all the rest of it, the neo-libs. Still gullible enough to vote for Labour. So I'd dismiss it, you know, but now he's, here he is. Here he is, and it's going to be nearly every day. It had to be him, all people.
Country and to regenerate towns, prioritising places that have been left behind. All of these things point to a Prime Minister that is trying to be more radical and more amenable to parts of the left of the Labour Party. Perhaps then Burnham is doing what a lot of Prime Ministers have realised they have to do when they take office. He's not governing in a purely ideological way, but in a more pragmatic one, and one that takes into account the views of more than one faction.
Very poor indeed, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, this is a huge story, and I can imagine that you felt pretty helpless by the headlines recently. And trust us, so have we. And that's not just because we want a comforting story, it's because we need evidence that doing something still matters. You may feel that individual actions are meaningless, but what if we told you that as a community, you can still make a difference? Well, that's why we joined Planet Wild. Planet Wild is not just your...
It ends with an ad, so I guess I won't play that because you have to sort of declare if you've got those kind of things. I'd like to help TLDR out, but alas, cannot, because reasons and things have been signed and whatnot. You know how it is, people. Just bring in the funk, Phil. But it's good to see channels like TLDR acknowledging Burnham to be more than he said he is, or appears to be. Further to the right, that is. But we'll try and raise our spirits after the environment and all of that with Burnham. As, yes, you lucky viewers are about to get, well, potentially a first-time viewing of this. It's members only video at the moment. It's part 2 of the Binface Ultimate Memes Gallery. We've been through the complications of using the word ultimate once already, which I won't get into, but that's going to be on the stream. Whilst you're watching live, it will be edited out afterwards. So for any non-members, or even members who haven't had the chance to catch that one yet, you're going to see it for the first time now. We've put together a few of our favourites. Obviously, about Binface and the Clacton by-election. Don't forget to hit thumbs up on stream, please, people, as we get into the only hot seats that we have at the moment. We will know in 7 days' time or so. What the outcome is for this one, it's getting white hot.
Today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Here we are then. Clacton-on-Sea by-election 26, triggered by an absolute tosser who's trying to stop people talking about certain donations. We'll go straight in with the Binface memes gallery. Yeah, do check out the video as well. Please share some hype points on that one, if you will. It's going public tomorrow, but members out there, if you show it some immediate support, that will certainly give it the springboard required on the algorithm. That would be fantastic. So let's see it, and I'm about to hear this song for about the 7th time today, but it's a bit of an earworm. Take it away, Bob. For Binface. Just for the Binface. It's a Winston Churchill. Yeah, ignore that bit. Just for the Binface. Yeah, extra shout out to the Binface Appreciation Society and the Count Binface fan club community for a lot of those memes there. Go and give those a follow. One's on Facebook, I think, the other's on Twitter. I can't remember which way around they are, but look them up on things. That's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to share with you. We spoke about the poll on the last live stream, I guess, so that's all there is at the moment for Clacton. But just days to go. Can he cause one of the biggest sensations in British political history? A week tomorrow. You know what to do. Well, if you're from Clacton, get it done, and we'll keep you up to speed with any more developments on the latest hot seats.
Okay!
Music's too loud. The neighbours have been complaining. You just watch your steps, sonny.
We'll get through a lot of vases on the Brews at 10. Jacqueline, nice to see you. Catch you again soon. Take care. Solidarity, thanks for joining us. We've still got a few odds and ends, bits and pieces to get through here. I'll hastily go through these two articles, because speaking of the far right and Farage, going to go next to this story about the Conservatives. Yeah, recruiting a known neo-Nazi, who they describe as a former neo-Nazi. Okay, what, rehabilitated? So rehabilitated that he joined the Tory party. Sorry, this screen share's just on a bit of a wobble. Should be alright now. So once this was obviously highlighted with his past being thrown into the public limelight, he's withdrawn. However, he's still going to be given some sort of advisory role. Joshua Bonehill Payne was convicted of racially harassing Jewish former Labour MP Luciana Berger in 2016. Now, while I've not much admiration for Luciana Berger, who's a Zionist herself, this guy is actually a genuine, real anti-Semite and a real piece of shit with it as well. Of course, she's been in more parties than Oliver Reed, but that's what he was sentenced for. But now he's been welcomed with open arms into the Conservative Party, and Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, it says, has defended the decision to select him as a candidate for the new Somerset Council seat of Newcairn South, saying he had been rehabilitated and her party, air quotes, believes in second chances. So she's now a Baroness, actually, Baroness Berger in the House of Lords. Described the appointment as an insult, adding that making him a party advisor was no better than allowing him to stand as a council candidate. Of course, yeah, he'll still be on the Tory payroll. Well, as an advisor, perhaps as a consultant, of course, council positions being mostly voluntary. Maybe not. But whether he's being paid for it or not, he shouldn't be within 1,000 leagues of any party. And the fact that they're trying to play this down. Now, of course, Starmer left Kemi Badenoch an open goal with the whole Peter Scandalson thing and the subject of vetting and whatnot, where political parties are concerned, but as you might have imagined, she didn't really have much of a leg to stand on herself, so it seems, as we sort of alluded to at the time. But that's pretty much it. That's the sort of stock that the Conservatives and Kemi Badenoch appear to be looking out for at the moment, and that sort of segues us from far-right douchebags, or, well, yeah, plural. Adam Gordon, thank you very much for that super sticker just before I get distracted. Solidarity for that, can we big up Adam in the chat, please, everybody? So I was just about to say, this is going to segue us into the Middle East, into Palestine more specifically, and not that there isn't a lack of ammunition when it comes to debate on Palestine. If you want to put this particular item in your armoury, for anybody who wasn't aware of this announcement, I think it was 2 days ago, from Central Europe now, that is the country concerned, in this article from Middle East Eye. Sorry, just dealing with some ads and marketing before I share the screen. There we go. So of all the countries in the world, people, who do you think, you know, might say, have a good eye out for who is or isn't a fascist or a Nazi? Yeah, there might be one that immediately springs to mind. And of course, as such, since the Second World War has taken huge steps socially and geopolitically to avoid any such association. Some might say too far, of course, with the way that pro-Palestinian protesters have been treated in the country, but I am, of course, talking about Germany. And 2 days ago, there you have it. Well, you will in a sec. There we go. German court rules that comparing Israel to Nazi Germany constitutes protected speech. So it is a reasonable comparison to make. Yeah. Gotta get that image off the screen quickly just because of reasons. Might have to edit that one out, to be honest. Not just because I don't like looking at it, but other reasons. So, a woman was convicted of that comparison, ruling that a post constituted political expression, protected political expression. The Zweibrücken Higher Regional Court overturned a €2,400 fine last week after it was imposed by a lower court over 2 Instagram posts published during the height of Israel's genocide in Gaza. So originally convicted, now overturned, because common sense apparently has prevailed. So the image that you saw, or might not have seen if you're watching back later on, at the top of the screen, was the one that she was convicted for. And another depicted Israeli soldiers firing into an enclosed area as blood flowed beneath its walls. It says swastika. Shit, I shouldn't have said that word. Shouldn't say that word on live streams. Appeared inside a Star of David. The woman accompanied the post with the hashtags Free Palestine and Gaza under attack. I'll say that loud and proud, of course. Can we get some flags and watermelons in the chat, please? People, whilst we're at it, if you don't mind, that'd be awesome. Judges found that the appeal Free Palestine made the woman's position clear, and that neo-Nazi supporters would not interpret the post as promoting their ideology. Because obviously, what Israel are doing in Gaza is straight up fascist occupation. Even Germany says. Even Germany says that's like AAA rated gold ammunition there for the next time the ASBS comes out in any kind of debate you might be having. And on a sort of similar note, but more one of censorship, you might have seen this that came out yesterday, but it'll be a first time watch for me actually. I've not seen this clip from Channel 4 News, who came across Hassan Piker whilst he was out, of course, at one of the recent demonstrations, and he was banned along with Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. You might remember that one, that story. They were both due to come over here and speak, and were not allowed to enter the country. However, Channel 4 did bump into him, and this is what he had to say about the whole thing, what he obviously thinks about the actions of Israel, of course, as well as the United States of America and the UK, the prescription of pal action, the way that non-violent protesters such as Defend Our Juries have been treated in protesting against the prescription of pal action, and a few other things as well. It really is someone who knows his stuff. So let's see this from Hassan Piker.
When I just ask you about the Home Office revoking your visa? We're from Channel 4 News in England.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs that the Labour government did such an undemocratic thing. But I guess that's the state of the world now. That's the state of liberal democracy now. I didn't have a problem going into the country under Tory leadership, which, clearly I'm at bigger odds with.
They've said that your presence in the UK...
And the argument is just that in many ways Starmer was worse than the Tories, especially on this. It wasn't exactly an easy ride being a protester under the Tories. But this is absolutely draconian, what Yvette Cooper came up with, and Shabana Mahmood. Just don't mention the £900,000 that Yvette Cooper received prior to the prescription. Don't mention that. Don't mention that at all. Don't scream it from a rooftop or through a megaphone. £900,000, pretty cheap. Pretty cheap.
It wouldn't be conducive to the public good. Do you think that could harm Abdullah al-Said's campaign being associated with you?
No, I don't think so.
Will it put off some voters?
No, I don't think so. The overwhelming majority of the Western world, I think, recognizes that what Israel is doing is a genocide. I think the media is now playing catch-up at this point, but for the most part,
well, they always
the people are pretty united on this issue. And no matter how hard governments move in the direction of repression, you can't really hide from the truth, and you can't really hide from the shame either. So, it's a setback, it's a hurdle, it's a real shame as well, especially considering that, I personally thought the UK was a bastion of liberal democracy, that these values like freedom of expression were...
Yes, Darren appears to be quite a stout fellow, doesn't he, unless she is a short lady standing in a ditch conducting the interview. Say probably a strapping 6'5" or 6'6", or I'm not going to say the next one.
Were values that especially the Labour government would be committed to. Hopefully there will be some attitude shifts happening with Burnham.
The government says it is committed to those values, but it says that your presence, you threaten those values. You're not conducive to the public good because of some of your rhetoric.
Yeah, of course the government is going to say that. They're not going to be like, yeah, we hate free speech now, but were they really committed to it with the pensioners that they arrested for the Palestine action protests that were taking place? I don't think so. I think that was a significant mode of repression from a government that recognizes that they are out of step with the needs of their voters, with the needs of the masses that recognize that Israel is committing a genocide, and the masses that demand a change from their government.
I really am not taking the piss here. I want to make that very clear. But he does look like he's about to run into a phone box and come out with a fucking cape on or something. Sorry, I'm eating a snack. Whilst this is on. So it is going to play more freely in a moment. I wasn't taking the piss with that, sorry. In a good way, because he's a Superman. Oh, God.
That is the fundamental of liberal democracy, something that I believe in, something that I'm fighting for here in the United States of America, as the Trump administration is putting democracy in the crosshairs. And it is a real shame to see that exact same mechanism of repression get repeated in a country like the United Kingdom.
It's something the country will deny, obviously, the United Kingdom's government.
Of course it's going to deny it.
Will you apply to go again now that Andy Burnham is in charge?
Yes, of course. And there's, we're in works. There were a bunch of different conferences that I was supposed to take part in that I had to take part in digitally. Now, in the age of the...
Well, he'll defer to the Home Secretary, who will say no.
Internet, it is also additionally silly to try to restrict movement in this regard, but I think it was more so a message. It was a message to everybody else that to think twice before they speak out against Israel and against the UK's relationship with Israel, against the United States' relationship with Israel. It's very frustrating, and it also has an additional compounding effect in terms of growing anti-Semitism. Not only is this false association of Zionism and Judaism very harmful for Jews living in the Western world, and it's something that I actually ironically warned about the last time I was in the UK when I spoke at the Oxford Union, which is what I was supposed to do this time as well before I got banned.
Yeah, the Oxford Union, okay? We're not talking about him coming doing some sort of soapbox gig in front of 7 people, the same way that people from the opposite end of the political spectrum do. No, invited to speak at the Oxford Union, the oldest educational institutions. Really, it's as clear-cut a case of censorship as there ever will be.
It's also very harmful for democracy in general. We should not feel comfortable about our governments taking action like this.
And what about some British Jews who say they feel uncomfortable that some of the criticism of Israel does tip over into anti-Semitism?
Come on, Channel 4, don't do the feelings over facts thing. That's... They feel a certain way doesn't make it so, okay? If I feel that the abominable snowman is outside of the studio fucking window, that doesn't mean that it's there, does it? And facts are facts, and stats are stats. And misconstruing one thing with another, a country with a religion, is what they mean. Pathetic.
Some British Jews say that makes them feel very unsafe.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Totally understand that. It's something that I oppose. Anti-Semitism is something that I fought back against. It is the canary in the coal mine of fascism. It's completely unacceptable. I'm an anti-fascist. I'm uncompromising on those values. I will always fight back against anti-Semitism as well. The fear can sometimes be very valid, and sometimes I think the fear steps into the territory of defending the nation-state of Israel and its actions. I think people are people, countries are countries. I criticize Saudi Arabia vehemently.
You're not suggesting the fear isn't real for people who feel the fear?
Of course not. Of course not. And I do think that there is a legitimate reason for it as well. I think it's not a secret that anti-Semitism has historically exploded in times of Israel's sieges in Gaza, and this time being the most consequential one, the most violent one, has also led to an increase in anti-Semitism. We believe that...
But it's led to a greater increase in the false accusations because of that misconstruement that I mentioned, of course. Yeah, and Zionism is racism, Zionism is fascism. So it's now become this sort of self-feeding entity in a fashion. It's just... truth, but as far as truth versus feelings is concerned, you've always got to side with the truth. And we certainly know that an entire population of Palestinians don't feel safe for a very legitimate reason that they aren't, because 100% of them have now been displaced, and that has never happened to a country in the history of humanity or warfare. 80% of the buildings have been destroyed. So 80% of places that they might think that they're safe have been destroyed. They're the ones who aren't safe. All the people on the planet who aren't safe. It's people like that, not just worried about reading criticism of Israel on a computer screen.
That is partially born out of this false association between Judaism and Zionism, a false association between the nation state of Israel and Jews living in the Western world, Jews all around the world. We oppose that, and we will continue fighting back against that, no matter what people say.
Are some in the Democratic Party, in the establishment, out of touch with how many younger voters especially are feeling about issues like Israel and what's going on in Gaza?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a secret. I think this race, as well as many other races that I've played somewhat of a role in, I had the honor to work alongside some of these wonderful candidates. This insurgent movement that's growing in this country has proven time and time again that it's not just about Israel, but a litany of different issues as well. It's about corporatism. For some, it's about capitalism. But for many, it's about corruption. And a lack of interest from our politicians to address some of these economic pains that people are experiencing. I mean, after all, this is exactly what Donald Trump ran on as well. He said he was going to fix the prices, and yet prices remain.
How much are eggs? Any viewers from the States? And I'm not joking when I ask, what's the current state of price of eggs at the moment? Because that was one of the big promises that Trump put out there, that groceries, particularly eggs, for anybody who buys them.
Quite high. There's a real affordability crisis in this country. He said he was going to run on a peace ticket, that he was going to be the peace president, and yet he has started countless wars and only continues to leave the world in a state of disarray. A lot of people are very frustrated by that. It's not just the Democrats either. There are a lot of independents who are frustrated by this too, and there are a lot of Republicans who are frustrated. He's
going to be remembered as the peace president just as much as I'm going to be remembered the world's greatest hang glider.
By this too, and I think it's fine for DC to be bubbled in.
I've never been on a hang glider.
And to be completely out of step with the needs of the masses, at least for the time being, because this is a real opportunity for campaigns such as this one, such as Abdul's, such as Malak Kiros, Chris Rabb, many people who are here right now, Donovan McKinney, who's running tomorrow as well.
Of course, is that where he is? He's out campaigning for the primaries, of course, a massive 10-to-1, that is in terms of funding, underdog for the Democrats, pro-Palestinian candidates, or I've forgotten the guy's full name, was just announced as a winner earlier today, and that appears to have rattled Donald Trump just as an extra bonus as well.
On the primary to really shine, to show that there is an alternative perspective out there, one that centers the needs of the working class rather than corporate interests, because for far too long that's been the only game in town. But we're coming.
Are there parallels with how the working classes are feeling in Britain, but they're turning to the populist right and not the left? Why do you think that is?
That is an exact parallel that I warned about when Keir Starmer won his race. That was my biggest warning to the British fans that I have, that if Keir Starmer does not overturn years and years of Tory-backed austerity measures, that the populist right was going to continue growing and become a force that the left, the institutional left, could not even fight back against. And I'm afraid that's exactly where we're at. However, at least with the Green Party, there is a little bit of excitement where the base can turn to a functional party that will represent their needs, that will represent a significant significant pushback against the growth of fascism in the UK, whether it be reform or even restore Britain, including restore Britain and its unholy allegiance with the likes of Elon Musk.
Thank you for that.
Of course, no problem.
And of course, they're also in league with Satan. Not the cool one that's on old album covers and things like that. The bad one. Hassan Piker, yes, may yet return to the UK. Damn well hope so. Did have a couple of other things to bring up, but they can wait until the next live stream. It's been a pretty long one tonight as well. nearly past midnight here in the UK, so we'll be calling it a night shortly. But don't you go anywhere. If you're a night owl yourself, I can still redirect you and raid you into another Socialist channel if you fancy doing a bit of a marathon, as well as showing some solidarity, of course. Speaking of which, thank you very much, every single member, for the solidarity that you show with us on the channel. And whether you are a member or you help us out with super chats, super stickers, super thanks, or you buy us coffees on the Buy Me a Coffee page, we really do appreciate it. Sorry for sort of fading towards the end of the stream. It's been a long week already. Busy as ever. Someone said they were going over. Yes, going over to Katie Marshall. So we will join them. We'll join Katie up in Scotland. Let's show some solidarity with Sister Katie in the north as we finish the stream. And there'll be more coming to you live, of course, before the week is out, so make sure that you don't forget to hit the notification button as well. That way you'll be up to speed with everything that's coming out on the channel. And do check out part 2 of the ultimate Count Binface memes gallery as well. That's members only at the moment, but it goes public tomorrow. If you are a member, please do check it out as soon as you can to give it a bit of hype on the algorithm. Speaking of hype, 2 hype points for those watching on a mobile device wouldn't go amiss either. Thank you very much, everybody. You're a good bunch.
Socialists.
Oh my god.
So Katie Marshall's locked in. That's where we'll be going, which more or less brings me to the end of the stream.
And I'm getting quite near the end now of this analysis.
So I shall round off by saying power to the people, free Palestine, Lebanon, Sudan and Yemen. Don't let the bastards grind you down. Don't watch the news. Be the news, my left eye. We'll be seeing you soon. Good night, everybody. Solidarity.
It's what Hitler and Goering did, and it is textbook. And if you think the next time it happens, we're gonna recognize it because they're wearing scary uniforms, you're out of your damn mind.